Hello, this is Edith Newmeyer, and I am the author of the book, The Mystery of Adam. Want to make a very short video on the feast days of the Lord, of God, okay? Which the Jews call feast days of the Jews, but they're not of the Jews. The feast days were given to Moses, and the Israelites were supposed to follow these feast days. Now, these feast days are appointed times. God has appointed times, okay, for Messiah to fulfill. And as signs also, of course, for the Israelites to recognize their Messiah. So Messiah is going to fulfill 7 feast days before he finally is on this world and reclaims the kingdom that was taken away from us human beings by Satan. So these 7 feast days, I have already said, are Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And 4 of these feast days have been fulfilled by Messiah exactly on the day that God told the Israelites to celebrate them. No variations. Okay, Passover. Jesus' death did not happen somewhere in the fall. Jesus' death happened on Passover because he is the Passover lamb. Same with first fruit, unleavened bread. Pentecost happened exactly on Pentecost. You can read that in Acts. So the next 3 will also happen exactly on the time that God appointed them to happen. Okay, and that's exactly on those days. So, however, the problem is that the Jews are the only ones, the descendants of Judah, only left over, and they're the only ones that are still celebrating these feast days. However, they don't even know exactly when to celebrate them anymore. They have gone astray from God's commandments so many times. They also have not lived in Israel for almost 2,000 years. And so they have a hard time finding the right date when these feasts need to be celebrated. Now, one of the indicator for celebrating the first feast day, which is Passover in the spring, is the barley season. So they cannot celebrate Passover until the barley is ripe. Okay, that is very important. It's a sign really for the springtime to start. And so once they see the barley ripe, the next full moon can be then celebrated as Passover, but not before. Now, the problem comes in because we are celebrating things on a solar calendar. We track time in a solar calendar, and so that is very different than what the Jews have to do. They have to go by a solar calendar, so they keep track of the full moons. Now, Rosh Hashanah is the only feast that happens on a new moon. Okay, so it is kind of hard to know when that will be. And that's why we have the trumpets. We have the trumpet and the watchman on the wall that sounds the trumpet when the first sliver is seen. So, however, we don't know exactly what new moon we are looking at. See, if the barley harvest is too late, too early or too late, then we have a different date set. So this year, I believe, and I don't know 100% when the barley harvest was, or if the Jews just set their own time. But anyways, I have seen this video lately because I've been really wondering, about how they set the time. So one of them is definitely barley season, okay? Because then when you have the barley season or the ripening of the barley, then you have Passover, and from Passover, then you count the time to the next feast, or the next feast, like which is Rosh Hashanah. Okay, but I heard somebody speak on this setting of when the feasts are in a different way just recently. So he is saying that there is more involved in setting this time for these feasts than just the barley season. He says you actually have to also look at the seasons and how the seasons are falling. So it has to be in the fall season. And so we need to know, when does the fall season officially, according to the calendar, the Jewish calendar, or the calendar that Moses gave to the Israelites, when that calendar starts. So it is a pretty tricky thing to find the actual time when these feasts happen. Now, during Jesus' time, obviously Jesus knew when that feast day was. And even during that time, they were still going by the barley season. And they know exactly, when the barley was ripe, because they were an agrarian culture. And they all depended on, the harvest of the barley. So they know exactly when barley harvest was. So they could determine when Passover was. Okay, that was not a problem during Jesus's time. But the Jews right now have been living in exile for 2,000 years almost. And so, yes, when they're going back, they can still determine barley season. But again, even in the fall, it is a tricky way of finding the right time, because these feasts have to fall within the seasons. So this guy, his name is Scott Clark, was suggesting something different. He suggested that we have to first look at when the season, like the fall season, starts, and then determine when that first new moon is. Determine when that would be. Okay? I know it sounds really strange, and it is strange because we are not used to it. But for me, it makes quite a lot of sense, because I have always kind of known that, how in the world are we checking out when these feasts really are supposed to start? Because we are right now on a solar calendar, and the solar calendar is very, very different. We have actually lost, ability to track time on a lunar calendar. So I recommend Scott Clark. And let me see if I can find his video. Is called Feast of Trumpets 2018, October Surprise. That's what the video is called. And I hope it will help you, because again, these appointed times are very important. Very important. We cannot determine the next event that's going to happen without being able to set the time. Now we know the next event for sure will be the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah. Okay, we know that. The next event that needs to be fulfilled by Messiah is Rosh Hashanah. No doubt. Anybody who will tell you it will be on a different day is not correct. And then, of course, after that comes the wrath of God, or the tribulation, or Jacob's trouble. And at the end of that period is, of course, Yom Kippur, which we will be celebrating in 3 days, Wednesday, I believe. Or let's say the Jews will celebrate it, okay? Now, if that is the correct time to celebrate it, it wouldn't be according to Scott Clark, because he says there's a different way of actually calculating when that event should happen. And I'm not saying he is right, okay? I'm not saying he's right, but I know lots of people will jump again to conclusions. He says no, he doesn't believe that this is really the time when the rapture will happen. I mean, this year. But definitely it will happen. The rapture will happen on a Rosh Hashanah. That's just the way it is. Okay? But again, it's another story to know when is it going to be? What year is it going to be? Okay? What year? Now, next year, again, the dates will be very different. It could fall again in a September. We don't know. I mean, Scott Clark has used actually a calendar. He uses the solar constellation, or the constellations. They're not solar constellations. The constellations, to know when we're going into the fall season. He says the fall season is always in, or starts always in Virgo. Okay, that's what it says. And so when the sun is in Virgo, that's when, the fall has started. And so watch his video, because it makes all very big sense. Okay, again, I'm not saying that this year is the time. He doesn't say that either. So people do not jump to conclusions. I'm just telling you that maybe we are, or the Jews are not, setting these feast dates correctly. Again, the spring is easy. You can watch the barley season, and then okay, this is when it happens. Now, the fall may be a little, more tricky. I don't know. I have not done a thorough research on this, but I'm just putting it out there. So for people who have more knowledge, to maybe put it in the comment section, because I watched this video, and everybody's saying, "Oh, great, 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 great." I don't want to hear great. I want to hear, is this the truth or not? People, do the research. There's so many people out there. Please do the research. And I'm sure there may be Jewish people or Messianic Jewish people that actually have a better understanding about how these feasts are supposed to be celebrated. Well, let me know. I'm not saying anything, okay? I'm not saying it's going to happen or this is the way it is. But it makes sense to me. It really does. Because I knew something was not right, okay? The Jews, they don't care. I mean, they have been, they have been not celebrating these things for so long. They don't want to look at really at Torah. They look at Talmud. They look at all these guys that interpreted real Torah. They don't want to study Torah. So how in the world do they know when to celebrate it? Okay, They are also under a solar calendar. How in the world do they do now? And we're just running after these people that have been um, messing up, the true celebrations of these feasts now for thousands of years. Okay, I want to know the truth, and I always want to get to the truth, to the bottom line. I'm not saying anything. I want to know the truth. I'd like to find out if it is true. Do we really not have an accurate way of pinpointing these feasts? Let me know. I will finish up for today and just, maybe for this year, we still have some time to actually uh, look forward to the rapture. Okay, I am just saying every year I'm looking forward to the rapture. Now, if Rosh Hashanah has already happened, then we don't have to worry about it. We're going to have to wait another year. That's just the way it is. But if Rosh Hashanah is not going to happen until the October, then we still have time to maybe look forward to the rapture this year. I will finish up for today. This is going to be a short one. And again, let me know if you find out something. Let the Holy Spirit guide you as usual.